All right, so let's give a warm round of applause for Beam Radio. There we go.
Yeah, so welcome back to another episode of Beam Radio. It's a little bit of a special one because it's the first time we managed to pull off a live one with multiple hosts. I've done one live in Berlin, all on my own. But before we introduce our very special guests and our debatable topics, I just want to have a quick word from our very special sponsor, Groxio, which I think is career fuel for programmers. Is that right?
Now I hope you're feeling it. It is career fuel for programmers, and we've talked a lot about Elixir and the idea that you don't have to be an Elixir programmer or have to recruit a team of Elixir programmers to build an effective staff. You can train them and you can build those skills, and that's what we focus on. So at Groxio, we have OTP, Elixir, Phoenix, and live view training. And if you don't know these things and want to, or if you're trying to build a team, let us know.
All right. You heard it here first. So we actually have kind of a luxurious pick of options for guests, which is kind of unusual. Usually we have to schedule these things in advance. Now you've just invited like a ton of cool people and we get to like pick and choose a little bit. So Bruce, who do you want to bring up?
Let's see. So with the opening keynote, I think let's have Randall Thomas up here for a hot take.
Yeah. So
How was that talk this morning?
our poor guests have only been prepared with one thing: bring a hot take.
Mike? Oh. Hello. Has anybody started drinking early after that talk this morning? Most of the feedback was I had never considered microdosing until now. Some people actually said I picked the wrong week to go off Xanax. Some people are still drinking from the Berlin talk. Well, you know, Berlin's one of those places, awful things happen. They don't always stay there. So,
Oof.
1945, look it up. So yeah, you know, there were a couple things I really appreciate about actually having some conversation with people after the talk about looking for hope in hopeless situations, especially with technologists. I don't know, if there was one thing I think that's very cool about the Elixir community and the Erlang community and just the communities that we sort of branch out into, Rust, some of the other places, they're looking outward, not navel gazing. They're looking out to apply things, they're looking out to do things. And it's one of the coolest things about it is mostly people are here not just to learn, they're here to learn and do, which is very different than a lot of tech communities. Nothing against the Haskell groups. I've learned a lot from them. It's just most of that stuff I later apply in something like Elixir. I'm looking at you, Chris. I blame you. So
That sounds like we should bring Chris up on stage because it gets spicy.
Yeah, so I like this take a lot, and I think that it's in the Elixir community, one of the things that you see is hope in places that you won't necessarily see it. And a good example is the machine learning community. One of the things that makes the AI, some of the ethics in AI things difficult is that there is such an entanglement with commercial concerns. And that's not really true across the Elixir community. I guess yet, or hopefully not ever. But I really like this idea that Sean and Jose and the rest of those teams have been building this independently. And so it doesn't mean everything's going to go right. It just means that there's more of an opportunity for it to do so.
It's definitely optimistic to try to make the beam do machine learning. Can't take that away.
Agreed. Actually, you know what? That's really funny. One of the things I think that's interesting is other languages. If you go to a conference, like if you go to a Go conference, not picking on communities, right? But they're looking more inward. And I think the beam looks outward. We've had talks on Gleam. We are embracing other languages. You want strong types. We think of ourselves as sort of a multidimensional set of tools interfacing around OTP, Beam, Elixir, Erlang. If you bring something on the Beam, Nobody's really going to care. Rust, NIFs, Rustler. So one of the things I like is it looks like people who are practically looking for the best parts and are willing to steal. One of my favorite phrases, I always use this, my teams talk to me about this all the time. I always say amateurs copy, professionals steal. And I look for other good ideas from other places and steal them, like NX as an example. They learned a lot from working with Python and working with those other numerical libraries, but also because of some of the work you've done with things like Julia to influence that. So I like our ethos of ethical theft, if you will.
Yeah, so I'd love to get Chris up here, Chris Miller up here, and see what his take is.
Welcome, Chris.
All right, hot takes. Well, I think everyone should learn Haskell, enough Haskell, to never use it again.
And why do you say so?
Well, hear me out. You know, Haskell's a great language for PhD mathematicians, and it really forces you to think a certain type of way. But forcing you to think only that way is very difficult. But if you learn how to think like, I think you said this actually. If you learn like 10% of Haskell, you'll be like,
No, I stole that from you.
no, that was
I stole this from you. I swear, I think it was maybe 2019 ElixirConf or 2020. We were walking. You sent me a bunch of typed papers on typed scheme and some reasoning template, and then I stole that from you. It's like and you're like, you said something like at lunch. You're like, no, you really only have to learn like 10% of Haskell, and that's. Yeah, so I'm quoting you back. I learned it by watching you.
It's a Spider-Man meme.
So you're saying I need to learn 10% of Haskell. If I know Elm, have I done that?
I think maybe you have.
I think Elm gets you like 5% there, if we had monads in Elm, I think that might be 10%. Yeah, probably.
I worked with a part of an Elm code base that had something which had a comment above it that said monad. So I think I did it, and I hated it. Thank you. A burrito.
Yeah, monads, burritos. There's. If you want to learn more about monads, just Google how to make a burrito in Haskell.
Listen, it's not that type of conference.
All right.
I would love to hear what Quinn has to say. About monads? You get to pick anything.
I'm so okay if it's not monads.
I kind of want to tie things back to Randall's talk earlier. My hot take is that no one's coming to save us. We need to do that ourselves, and that sometimes means doing things that we don't know how to do, whether that's fighting climate change or AI or whatever it is that we care about. That's kind of a broad thing, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of my time in the Elixir community has been spent talking about deeply technical things, and that's not where my brain's at now. There's a lot of shitty stuff happening in the world, and we have a lot of skills that make us uniquely suited to target aspects of those problems.
So go outside of tech. That is a hot take. How does that pay the bills?
Or find ways of using the skills we've developed in tech to work with people who know more about the problems that are impacting the world, but who need people with our skills to solve them.
I love it. It's terrifying.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. I think if we accelerate like 5 years into the future, people won't really be coding in the traditional sense anymore. So we really will have to start thinking about like the domain problems or the people problems that are behind the code, because the computer will eventually be able to do the code.
And I love the way that you said that, that nobody is coming to save us. But so part of the technical mindset is often that we are subservient to our companies or our bosses or our project manager. And one of the reasons that Randall usually gives the first talk at the conference, or has for a number of years, is that Randall provokes us to be better, to think about serious things happening in the world. So Quinn, what would you say are some of the main problems, one or two main problems that you think could use attention and that we could make a pretty decent dent in?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to do a first for Beam Radio, I think. I'm going to throw some unlicensed meds into the audience. Healthcare is something I care a ton about. How many of you hate the dentist? How many of you either don't have dental insurance or you know someone who doesn't? So there's an anarchist collective I absolutely love called Four Thieves Vinegar. They do a lot of biohacking. They do like DIY medicine. One of the projects they did recently was a nano-silver tooth seal. It's really easy to mix. For $200, I made enough for about 1,000 teeth. You just put it on your teeth, and it's kind of like having a dentist living in your mouth. This is research that has been out there for a decade. It hasn't made it into consumers. You can read the papers. It's really easy to replicate. Who wants some? I've got like 3 or 4 packs on me. These people do other work with like printing medicine, or they're the people who started shipping abortions around on postcards. There's so much shit you can do with very little skills, and we just kind of need to start, we need to start focusing on the right problems. Which for me, that's healthcare, but for you, it might be something else. I've got one more. That's not how you throw things at all.
And we brought some T-shirts to give away. I don't know, like T-shirts feel kind of quaint compared to handing out meds.
There's a QR code on those. If you scan it, there's instructions on how to make more, how to install it. Each of those should be good for about 2 mils. Hit me up if you want more info.
Quint, you are amazing.
These ideas are not brought to you by GigCityElixir or Agroxio. That really is fantastic. I would love to hear what Sylvia has to say. Do you have a take?
Yeah, you know it.
Just one?
Are you saying I get 2? I don't
First,
think you,
introduce yourself for those who might not know you.
I don't think you want me to get 2. I'm Sylvia Deal. What is there to say about me? I spoke at Codebeam America a month ago. I graduated college 6 months ago. I think it makes your take colder, but I kind of just generally agree. And to add on to it a little bit, Quinn talks about the skills we get in tech, and it's very, very easy to think about that as, you know, computing skills, concurrency, good at distributed systems. But in a community like this, the real skill that you get is the ability to look at a problem and break it down into tiny little discrete pieces and then reconstruct that into a solution. Those are the skills that bring us to throwing out, you know, DIY medicine here. Those are the ones that matter. Those are the ones that everyone here has. You don't have to code to fix things. There's going to be something you can do. That's hot take number 1, which is still get out of tech. Hot take number 2 is, like, y'all, the job market, it is not is very bad at linking people who are highly skilled, highly able, have that one fundamental skill you just heard that I believe in, is the key to being an engineer, does not translate in a resume, the current system does not get people who have that skill jobs. And that's, you know, my hot take 6 months job search, finally signing a contract today, actually.
I love that. And I think that's so important to kind of recognize that we are kind of shaped as an industry to recruit in a very lazy way, and to ask for things that often don't exist. 7 years of Elixir development, or, you know, things like that, what we should be recruiting is respect, humility, and a strong work ethic in addition to problem solving. And if I have those things, I can train the rest.
Yeah. I'm not even sure it's about like the problem solving and that kind of stuff. Like, the team I have now is a team I personally could not have recruited, because they all came to me via my sister, who's a anarchist radical way up in the north of Sweden, and she was like, hey, one of my friends is learning to be a programmer and they'd like to intern somewhere, and you seem like you don't suck. And it started that way, and I got 2 more people through him. And like, I just know mostly white guys who like programming fundamentally and have liked it for a long time. That's like the people I naturally have connected with and gotten in touch with through my work. I could never have found the people that I now get to work with that are so much better at a ton of things that we just don't know about in tech. I think like this conference is a pretty good example of the human side of things, which is generally small scale. It doesn't kind of scale with like abstractions and, oh, horizontally scalable human touch. Like, I don't think that's a thing. I think it's like human mess. We always need to deal with. Oh. No, I think like it's the hard problems are human mess, and I don't think programmers are necessarily good at solving human mess. We might be able to help, but like, I don't know how to get in touch with the people who would need meds even if I could make them. I know there are people that are good with that, people that have built support networks for people forever and that type of deal. Like, running this conference is about getting to know people, finding connections, making connections. Is very little about tech. Like, you know your tech, but that's not why this is a good conference.
I would agree with that, and that this is a good conference has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with Maggie Tate, and the reason is that she recognizes that great conferences are about hospitality, and that's it. If you're hospitable to speakers, the word gets out and you get good speakers. If you care and love for your speakers, they will care and love for the people who come. If you put people on the stage that make others feel comfortable, then you'll have other people like them. So that's what we do. We are a hospitality conference, and I will take my answer back and say, you know, the humility, respect, problem-solving ability, and the ability to think about people.
So I should have been putting radical anarcho-communist on my resume then, these past 6 months.
There you go. There you go. So I would love to flip the table of this model and have either Lars or I sit down and turn this into a fishbowl where the audience provides the hot takes. But before I throw Lars to the wolves, what we'll do is we'll have one more invitation up, and that is Zach. I'd love to hear a hot take from you, Zach.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was not prepared to follow what I'm following right now. Like, I had a technical, programmy hot take, and I feel like the only way I'm gonna match this energy is like, my hot take is eat the rich or something, I don't know. Yeah. I'll say what I was gonna say. Just know that I will ask Bruce next time to put the inspirational folks after me, not before me. So yeah, my hot take is about the damage of Yagni. So I've seen more damage done in the name of Yagni, things like dry, right? These sort of principles of, oh, you're not gonna need it. Then I have the other way around. I've seen it help less than I've seen it hurt. Help less than I've seen it hurt? Did that work? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the basic issue is like, a lot of times engineers have a habit of hand-waving certain things away, like, oh, you're not gonna need it, let's approach it when we need it. But it's like, we've done this before. Like, we're building apps. We've been doing this for how many years? Like, we know the kinds of things that happen. We know, like, I'm gonna need to monitor this thing. We know that it's gonna crash someday. We know that, like, I'm gonna have to add a feature for, I don't know, audit logging or something. Like, you can say Yagni, but like, you're probably gonna need it. Like, and if you're not gonna need it, then it doesn't really matter. You're building something small anyway, I don't know. So that's my hot take, is that you're probably gonna need it.
What's the new acronym? What does Yagni mean?
Oh, sorry. Yagni means you aren't gonna need it. It's an acronym that says, somebody says, like, we need to make sure that we can add X to this app. And they're like, Yagni, like, we'll figure that out later. But don't assume you're going to need something and thus do more work today, because they're like trying to avoid premature optimization or premature work, that kind of thing.
I can bring you back real quick from there to
Nice.
the human element we were discussing. Randall and I were talking about pacemakers run on code, right? And a lot of agile development principles, right? You get the thing out and you try to update it. Doesn't work that well when you're talking about big, important, life-changing things. And perhaps more software is becoming more important and more efficacious in somebody's lives than we all like to think. Facebook, I think, is the classic example that has done so many things to so many people's lives. Never intended, often because of, we did in fact need data protections and didn't even think about it.
So you mean like you don't want to be on the pre-release version of a pacemaker, like the still gathering customer feedback version?
If Quinn's building it, sure.
Well, you kind of joke, but just over the last couple of days, there's a news story about an insulin pump that lost connection to the service that it depended on, and 200 people entered a hypoglycemic state, I think, or hyperglycemic, I forgot which one, but I don't remember the name. I don't want to slander the wrong company, but
It's important to slander the right companies.
very important to slander the right company. But I bet they thought they weren't going to need some of that resilience testing that maybe they should have.
Is there someone in the audience now that has a hot take or can be convinced to have a hot take given a shirt? I see a hot take. I'm not surprised. Come on up. Any of you that feel like running away or sitting down can clear a chair.
You had the technical thing. I get
No
it.
worries.
Hey guys, I'm Ben. If you were here yesterday, I was here yesterday. If you weren't, here I. Oh, sweet. Is this the right size? I hope so. So I've been doing nerves work. I have been working with this company. We do energy management. It's unimportant. And originally I was brought on to do C++ coding. And I had a couple of years of C experience as a TA beforehand, so pretty good in those areas. I know many people here come from Ruby and other higher level things, so C++ is scary, and don't worry, it doesn't get better. But to me, the experience of going from that to Elixir was great. Probably very different from the rest of you learning it. And the comparison that I like to make, which is not entirely accurate, so don't tear me apart for it, is that Erlang is to Elixir kind of what C is to Python. Kind of both general purpose in their way, but like if you want to get your hands deep down and dirty, yeah, you go into Elixir. And my hot take here is you need to be using the OTP more. There's a lot of good things in there. I know there was a presentation earlier that said the OTP is dirty and Erlang is crusty to use. Disagree. Use the OTP more. There are a lot of great things inside of there, and I'll give you a second in a second here. If we're going to go up and do like the people thing, the higher thinking here. An earlier presentation said Randall, right? You said constrained environments, right? We're not trying to go all the way up to total freedom, perhaps. And the same thing here. Don't be afraid to constrain yourself and get your hands down and dirty in that thing. And perhaps that applies further to more life situations as well. It's okay to be uncomfortable and to not be in a great spot, and having yourself stuck there and trying to figure out how to work with the OTP compared to some higher levels of abstraction where Phoenix is its own language at this point. Perhaps having those extra constraints teaches you a lot more things, and your suffering for a couple months to learn it is going to have you coming out way better on the other side. So write more OTP code. Use it more.
Zach came running back, so I assume he either strongly agrees or strongly disagrees.
That's the point of a hot take.
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree in principle.
Okay.
Okay, one of the most common issues that you see, people start like they get started on their Elixir journey and they've heard about OTP and they're like, wow, I'm so excited to use processes and to let it crash and all that sort of stuff. And then they like make a web server that like responds with HTML and they think, wow, I had no need for any of that, right? Sure, like Phoenix did it for you, right? Like they had the request handler and all that sort of stuff. But then they go through a different phase where they think, I really should be using OTP. And so they want to like, I don't know, talk to an external API, and then they're like, well, that should be a gen server. So they like make a gen server to talk to the external API. And then they've used OTP to do like organizational stuff within their code, like to have a single interface and a single module. Now that's like a single process. And it's like, well, you didn't really think about this because you've serialized your entire application's access through one process to an external API. So my only counterpoint to this would be like, use OTP more if you have a reason to use OTP more. But a lot of times when folks are like, I have this hammer, they're like, start looking for nails, you know?
So yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I get it.
Cool.
Now, and I perhaps also entirely agree. However, when you have the hammer and everything looks like a nail, you hit your fingers twice and you realize it's a bad idea. But you got to hit your fingers twice, right? Maybe just once. And so yes, certainly, right? Don't repeat yourself. Don't reinvent the wheel. All these great things. But until you do the anti-pattern yourself, you can read people say online, oh yes, don't do this thing, it's a bad example. But until you really go through all the steps and you're like, oh wow, geez, that does suck, oh man. You're not like, it's a different experience when you really viscerally get it yourself.
Okay, so now it's like, this is like tagging in. I feel like this is WWF. I see you going up on the top turnbuckle, I'm going like this. Okay, so this comes down to the, in theory, in principle, I agree with you.
Here we are again.
But in reality, I don't need to see somebody get run over by a bus before I realize don't step off the curb against the light. Because there are absolutely things, and here's the problem with doing that. It assumes a level of understanding that you understand the hole you're digging and how deep it's going to go. A lot of times, especially in code, how many people here have actually ever inherited a code base from the senior developer who was there just long enough to basically, I'm going to drop the F-bomb, sorry, they fuck it up, right? Like, and that's the only way to put it. Like, you are the guy getting there because you're like, wait, 175 an hour and they didn't even interview me? What's going on? Then you check the commit history. And you usually use get diff, but you're like, damn, blame, get blame. Mother. It's not even the same version of OTP. This is 23, this is 25. How did you do this? How did you get the 25 above the 23? Like, it's like there are literally people who don't know enough to know that they shouldn't. And so I honestly believe that you're right. Sometimes hitting your fingers with a hammer is okay. And sometimes what you realize, it's not your finger, it's your wrist, it's your elbow, and more likely than not in a team environment, it's his fingers I'm hitting with the hammer, right? So the thing that frameworks give us is a historical remembrance of bad ideas that we abandon. Right? And if you want to look at it, look at Rails. Not picking on Rails, but Rails 9.8, pretty rough. Rails 1, we thought we knew what we were doing, and they're like, oh, no, we don't. Rails 2, we got this. We never need another version. 3.2, MERB. Sinatra. Rails 4, we've got this. Rails 4, oh, God, no, we don't know what to do with JavaScript. Okay. That's where the Node community came from. Half those people are like, we're out, burning their ships, right? Now we're back. Right? So there are lots of bad ideas. So what I would argue is understand the difference between bad ideas that teach you something and bad ideas like don't jump off the cliff just because he did it, right? And sometimes in code, it's hard to know which is which.
Is the OTP really so bad that we're going to compare it to getting hit by a bus and jumping off the cliff?
Okay,
the answer is yes. I'm sure the answer is about to be yes.
Okay, hold on. It's not. I don't think it's about whether or not the OTP is being bad. It's about, because there's a lot of different contexts that you can do this context of, like, let yourself make the mistake. And like, if it's your like play app at home, like do whatever you want. Nobody, but a lot of times engineers essentially learn by entrenching a bunch of mistakes into like a multi-million-dollar project. And so that's not really a good place to do your learning. So I think the important thing is, I think we all really agree at the end of the day, which is OTP is an extremely powerful means. But people, when they're looking to build things, they don't want to build means, they want to build ends. And so often we end up with frameworks that, like, I want to use a framework that gets me the end I want. And sometimes that's using the OTP. I understand it well enough typically to use it. Yeah, here you go.
Like, I want to derail this. You touched on something like the 175 an hour and no interview. Like, no interview. I'm looking at Sylvia here. Like, tech is so fucked up. We have no idea what we're doing. Like, I have not interviewed for a position since last 10 years or so. None. Because connections, because people think I'm a nice guy, or I'm just like white beard, seems to know his stuff. Oh,
I
hair.
think it's the Swedish thing. I
It's
think
actually
there's
it's
just
the
a
hair.
higher level.
But really, it's a mix of privilege in my case, but also just like connections. The easiest way to get jobs that is actually useful to tell people about. Like, it's kind of hard to change who you are to fit the norm, but what you can actually do is get connections, get networks, and people will just bring you in because they prefer to have you knowing that you might not know everything to having someone who sucks as a person. Because most people want to work with reasonable, nice people that they get along with, so they're willing to bring you in. That's kind of the gist of it. But also, there's no check for qualifications in tech, which is kind of weird and also kind of wonderful, because like, I have no qualifications. None. Oh.
So a couple things. One, I want to reiterate something for Bruce and people who have worked on my teams. This is something, I think I can talk about this. I used to work at Apple, and one of the things I was actually, for the teams that I was working on, I radically changed the interview process. We used to do these ridiculous 8-hour grueling interviews, and I changed it. I stopped it, and it was incredibly controversial, and they said, why? And I'm like, because we're not getting quality candidates. And part of the thing was, and after I went with my team and I made everybody go through it, and they were like, okay, what are you doing? I put them all through the interview process. I'm like, what do you think that we're checking for? And they're like, I don't know, because this is the strangest interview ever. You didn't ask me to code anything on a whiteboard. You didn't check to see whether or not I knew my Vim keys. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, because I'm checking for empathy. Empathy is the only thing I cannot teach you, right? I can teach you almost all the other skills, and I will tell you what you find, especially in self-selecting groups. Like Elixir, if you look on the dev program, it's about 2.6% of the market, according to the last Stack Overflow survey, right? Rust, I think, is about maybe 6%-ish. What you find in these groups are a couple of things that are self-selecting but are good for replication, and this appeals to how you get jobs. You find people are highly empathetic and highly interested in learning, and if you collect enough of them over time, eventually those people will be in a place to offer you a better position and a better job. And know the difference between taking a job that you're taking to get the money you need to make your life and taking a job because these are getting the people that you want to be working with in your community for the next 5, 10, and ongoing years.
All right, so let me get like really flamin' then. This is the actual hot version of earlier take. So then what am I meant to do? Searching for a job right out of college, right? You know, I understand that real hires happen because you know people, because people see your ethos and who you are. I showed up, you know, to the developer conferences. I spoke at the developer conference, and you know, didn't get nothing out of it. My position I ultimately took was a cold email, right, to somebody I thought I may have seen at Codebeam America. So is that on me, or is that on us?
Seeing as a direct question, yes. Right? Like, it's like, don't get me wrong, okay, sure, it's like hot take. I'm tired of, every time I drop into Elixir, it's like, you're Chris, right? No. Right? Frankly, if you talk about, there are different things about what employment is and what it means, especially as I think we're about to hit a developer cold winter, right? Because realistically what's been going on is everybody's been lying about what's going on. Like all these companies, we're not laying off people. Talk to people at Amazon, talk to the people at Google, talk to people at Facebook, and all the teams are shedding bodies. And they have been shedding bodies for lots of different reasons. But what I will say is this has happened in the Ruby community before, and over time, the community of Ruby, when I couldn't find a job for like Thunderbolt Labs people, like even at $50 an hour for people who used to be making 200, they would be like, hey, I know you've got a bunch of people on the bench. We've got this terrible little project. Do you want it? And so it's not always perfect, But I think the difference is we're willing to try and improve to get closer to perfect. Is it your fault? Some. Is it our community fault? Yes. Is it the environment's fault? Fuck yeah, we're biased as everything else. If you don't look like me, you don't sound like me, trust me. Trust me. You have no idea how often when you walk in and they're like, I'm here to talk to so-and-so, and like, who are you? I'm Randall. Randall, no. We spoke on the phone? I thought you were taller? Oh, I'm sorry. I left the Young Republican polo at home. This is just how I dress for when I talk to other developers, right? So there's absolutely these biases, but acknowledging them, all of us, it's our job to acknowledge them, but also not let them stop us from doing the right thing. And ultimately, if you find an empathetic person, because here's the best part, I would hire you based on empathy if I actually had a position, and I might have some coming open. So let's make sure, right?
Okay.
Because to me, the other thing that we want to talk about is about skills. We are absolutely paid for outcomes, not process. Even though, strange thing, people who like us who like to learn, we love process. They pay you for the outcome. That's fine. But I'm going to tell you something else that they actually, they can't check for and they don't understand, and oftentimes groups, especially when it comes to getting jobs, don't realize, which is that we have a choice and self-select. A lot of the things that we actually see in these jobs is because we don't feel like we are empowered to change the culture. We don't feel like telling people we can walk away, and there's this terror that we're not going to be able to pay our bills. Right? And realistically, a lot of those things they're not as real as you think. Some of the best things that ever happened to me, some of the best opportunities I ever had, is when I'm like, I just told that guy to go stick something somewhere, and I have no idea where I'm gonna get burger money tonight. And then somebody else I knew just comes out of the woodwork, and they're like, hey, I don't know if you have time to do this, but would you like to come look at this weird project? And I know it seems weird that the universe will try and take care of you, or it seems like some karma hippie, like tripping, like, microdosing mushrooms things, but there are aspects of community, and that to me is why those bonds with the community matter. So, long answer, yeah, it's our fault, it's all of our faults, but it's also all of our responsibility to try and make it better, collectively.
Yeah, I kind of, in a way, came here to say exactly that, came up here to say exactly that. We talk about empowering people in terms of tech and the knowledge that we have, and to me there's a big gap. If we could, can I get a show of hands of people who, when you got out of college, you started your own company, you started your own startup, you did your own thing?
Like,
okay, that
4
is,
hands,
yeah,
maybe?
3 or 4. Yeah, that I believe is key, because you're not asking anybody to hire you. You're not asking anybody to care about what it is that you care about. You can build it, if you can monetize it. I know, sorry for the communists out there. I know you don't need the monetizing part if you have a supportive community and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that.
Well, you gotta eat.
Snidely, right? Exactly. You do have to eat, and I think, to me, that's a piece of the puzzle that's missing. Is we have a lot of people with capability, a lot of people with great ideas, and we're missing the, like, okay, how do we turn this into a business, or how do we turn this into more of a movement? Like, I look to, like the original, I don't know if we want to go down this road, but the original Black Panthers, were facing a system that, like, was legitimately against them. And they're like, fine, we'll do our own social programs, we'll do our own policing, we'll do our own schools. We don't need, it's not, not to bring this back to anarchy or whatever, but the point is, like, when it comes back to what the power of the individual is, and especially us as tech professionals, like, to me, it just comes again back to paying the bills. And, like, you don't have to ask somebody for a job and whatnot. If we can get to a place where we're encouraging business and startups and like that side of stuff to be in our own hands.
I just want to say, like, it's a great idea, but, like, you get out of college, I mean, you broke, like, where do you have the contacts to start? It's like, oh, you're a smart person, like, just start a business. Like, you know how many times you can, it's like, just don't buy coffee and you won't be broke. Like, I think I'm not trying to argue with the concept. I just want to say that, like, a lot of times it can it's almost like victim blaming. That's not what you're doing, but I'm saying, like, the idea of, like, just pull yourself up, like, figure it out, go start a business. It's like, businesses, what percentage of businesses are started by just, like, gumption? I mean, like, usually you have, like, some funding, you have some, like, new skill or opportunity or idea, and most people coming straight out of college don't have that kind of thing, right? Like,
yeah, sure. I wonder if any of the I wonder if any of the people who did that can come up and kind of speak to that. Because I'm speaking more to the things that we don't know in that regard. Like, how do you do it? I don't know, right? And I'm just saying that, like, as a community, I think that's a way to empower.
How can we empower those people?
It's not just giving people tech, because they still, we still think, oh, they have to work for somebody and they have to do this and they have to do that. But if we encourage taking that piece of it away, as far as a barrier, I think that should be encouraged, is where I'm going with that.
Okay, so my hot take is, you got to take the shitty jobs sometimes. So I think we're all really smart people and we have really good self-confidence a lot of the times, and we're like, no, I deserve to be working the language I want to work in, getting paid the money, doing all the things, but sometimes you just have to take the shitty jobs.
Amen.
And you learn so much from those shitty jobs. Like, maybe you're learning like what not to do. That's still super valuable for you moving forward. So that's my hot take. Just sometimes it's not the perfect thing.
Now I want to plug Anna Sherman. Thank you for that take. So Anna Sherman not only has taken the shitty job, but also has taught other people about what she learned after taking those jobs. I think that's so important. The very first GigCityElixir that we did, she helped other people pick themselves up that that didn't have the opportunity to have what some of us have. So thank you.
So I kind of want to reiterate what you said. What you didn't ask is how many people started that company right out of college and it succeeded. Mine didn't. Mine went Tango uniform faster than anything you could say. But I will tell you right now, what I've spent most of my time doing more recently, when I mentor engineers and I mentor people, I still mentor all the people from every team I've ever worked with. If you've ever worked with me, I always tell them it is an unlimited ticket to call me up and ask about anything that I know about, or I will put you in touch with somebody that I know that does. And I will tell you the number one thing I teach them are business skills. How does your company make money? Can you read a balance sheet? You want to actually get hired at a job? I'll tell you first thing, go and talk to the COO and basically be like, so I was looking at your 10K. And I'm like, tell them that you have those things that make you understand a business. You're more than just a nerd or a programmer or something else. And I will tell you, it doesn't have to be fairy. It doesn't have to be one of those main skills. But if you learn those business skills, they will carry you farther just in starting your own business, running your own business, or even working for it. Because I'll tell you right now, if a programmer comes to me and he says, like, okay, how do you guys make money? What's the margin? What's your EBITDA, like that? And do you have a balance sheet? I'm going like, I probably can't afford this kid, but right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it too with being able to fail as well. So that was the situation I was in. I actually didn't start in tech. I started a live sound company out of school. Actually dropped out of school to start it. And it didn't work. And I think one of the things that I learned from that too is it's not that you always have to succeed in the thing. Sometimes it's the journey, being able to take the journey that gets you to the next place. And that eventually led me into tech. Like, that's how I ended up becoming a control system programmer and getting into this whole field, which got me into web and got me into embedded. And actually now, so I'm the owner of Redwire Labs. So it kind of came around full circle. And I've been able to use that to give back to the community now, which has been great. So I really love what you said, Randall, and your philosophies there, and I think you totally nailed it.
Personally, like, the way I got into business was dumb luck and network, but the network was like through my D&D group. So, and there was this wild entrepreneur, like serial entrepreneur, just starting projects and getting involved in shit. And he had some EU project and he lost this web developer, and he just like, you did the website and CMS for our D&D group, right? Like, yeah. Could you do a website for me in 3 days? Like, probably, yeah. I'll pay you with a color laser printer. I'm like, sweet. Yeah. And I had no connections. Like, no one in my family has done business. No one has done run a business. No one has done finance. No one has funded anything like that. I just got in touch with this wild entrepreneur, and he pushed me over a cliff, and I ended up doing like freelancing for him, and then suddenly, like, yeah, this is kind of fun. And now I'm not afraid of it anymore. But you need some way in. he was my first IT job. No one would give me the time of day. I could not get an interview. I was entirely self-taught. Like, that's where I started.
Yeah, I was debating whether or not I was going to pop up here. So I'm one of the guys that did start a company right out of college. We actually based everything around Elixir at the time. We're still in business. We just celebrated our 9-year anniversary a couple days ago. But here's the thing they don't tell you when you just like strike off in that direction. I still don't feel like I'm qualified to be a business owner. We've gone bankrupt or nearly bankrupt 4 times in our history. We've almost been sued twice. There are so many hurdles you go along the way, but a lot of it's really just you're failing forward. So it's no matter what you do, you're constantly learning, and that's all you can do. You'll never be ready to start anything. Yeah. It's a scary world.
All right, one last note, and then we need to wrap up.
My hot take is that any company, as soon as they can afford to, should start an apprenticeship program. We need to, as an industry, make paths in for more people, and it's actually completely in our interest to do so. About half our developers at LaunchScout are former apprentices, and it's amazing how productive people can be that are high potential, that just if you can intentionally give them a situation where they can have a chance to be successful. You mentioned you were self-taught, and I've seen over and over again that there are just lines of people that are going to be excellent developers that are self-taught and have no path into our industry, and given just half a chance, they can excel and become amazing.
That is not a hot take, but it's a warm and comforting and kind of hardening take. So I think we can happily go out on that. And as per usual with Beam Radio, we want to thank our sponsors before wrapping up. Thank you to Groxio, Career Fuel for Programmers, and I guess thank you to my own company, which is always kind of weird to say. And I hope you join us next time on Beam Radio. This one was wild and very fun. Thank you so much to everyone who participated.